All right, hey everyone, I'm here today with Will Green, master copywriter. He's going to talk a little bit counterintuitive to what I think everyone talks about, which is everybody's so obsessed with a big idea, but Will is here to talk about the power of the little idea. So, Will, thanks for being here.
Oh no, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, like, you're an awesome copywriter. You had a ton of winners, but for those people who haven't had the pleasure of working with you or knowing you, could you give everyone kind of a background on all the stuff you've crushed here over the years?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in direct response and copy for just over 10 years now. I started with Stansberry way back in the day. Left them to go and be copy chief for a guy named Ramit Sethi at a BizOp company called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. If you've heard Ramit's name, it's probably he's got a New York Times bestselling book, and then just had a Netflix series come out last year that's done really well for them in the business. Then I went and I was one of the copy chiefs at Money Map for 5 or 6 years, and still did a lot of consulting in the biz op space on the side. And then the last year and a half since everything that happened in Money Map, I've been doing a lot of freelance work and really transitioned into a lot more fractional CMO stuff for tech startups, because it turns out that tech founders have a great deal of money and absolutely no idea how to sell anything.
Perfect.
So
That's awesome. All right, so let's jump into this real fast. So, like, what do you mean by like the power of the little idea versus kind of the big idea?
Sure. Well, so we all love the big idea, right? Anybody with an agora or financial background, it was really our bread and butter for a long time, where we would create these enormous packages around this promise that the world was changing forever. Because that's what the big idea it always has been. When you boil it down, it's just a reason that our audience will accept that everything just changed, and now there's this phenomenal opportunity that's never existed before. And those are amazing. I will never say anything against the big idea package. Uh, but like, let's be real, they take 3 to 6 months to get out the door, and some of them become nightmares that take 2 years to get out the doors. I mean, we've really all seen that happen. And there are other ways to sell, other ways that a lot of other industries move prospects through, and even info industries that are not physical products, that we've always sort of spat on, and I call these the little ideas. And those are things like, look, I don't have to convince you now, for the most part, that something desperately new is happening in crypto, and there's going to be another halving, or the gas companies have just discovered crypto and it's going to change everything, or whatever other massive catalyst event is going to happen. There's enough interest in crypto right now that I can, if I've got a little bit of credibility, and we can all create enough credibility in our gurus to sell this, say, hey, everybody, my name's Mike, and over the past 3 years, I've made X amount on crypto. Here's what my stuff done. And if you've been wanting to invest in cryptos, I have a 2-week crypto challenge that will teach you everything you need to know and get you your first coin. It's $27. And here's my deal. If you just do the whole thing, you do day one on day one, day two on day two, day three on day three, it's free. I'll give you your money back, because I don't care about making money for this. I just want your commitment, and I want you to learn this amazing thing. And that exact thing, I know because I've done it, works extremely well. You can bring on a couple hundred customers a day at break even, and 30% of them will actually make it all the way through the challenge and do everything. And of
Mhm.
those 30%, 27% will buy your back end product because they trust you so much. And
That's
it
awesome.
works extremely well. And you can do that with so many things, where if you just identify the one little problem your market actually has, and instead of going for these big ideas, these massive stories, offer a viable solution at a paid price that's reasonable, they'll take a flyer on it,
Mhm.
and they'll get in. And you don't think of that then. That little idea is just that first step in the door that replaces the free BS lead magnet thing that nobody reads anyway. Get them to actually commit to a little idea that, yes, I want to learn crypto. Yes, I want to rebalance my portfolio. Yes, I'm really interested in AI stocks right now. What do I need to know?
Mhm.
And then you treat your first 3 weeks with them. as that long sales letter where they come in on the little idea and you deliver it over 2 or 3 weeks. And by the end of that, you have their trust. And now I can sell you on my back end. Now I
Mhm.
can ask you for $10,000 for this mastermind or $3,000 for this trade service or whatever it is. And you've just stepped them in little piece by little piece, small step by small step. And like, we're not reinventing the real wheel here, right? Like tons of people in biz op and real estate have done this super
Mhm.
efficiently for decades.
Yeah.
But we in financial have always pretended like it wouldn't work, and it's not true. It does. It works very well.
Yeah, that's so there's a lot of things that I like about this idea is that one, anyone who's been around the larger publishers knows that even the best publishers can often go for a year or two without a strong front end, which
Yeah.
is a ridiculous amount of time. And so, on a business level, one of the things that I've always felt like allowed Agora to sustain itself so well was that you might have a business or two that doesn't have a front end that works. And so the kind of natural affiliate relationships they had allowed people to kind of profit off the back of other people's front ends. Um, but that's a really scary amount of time to not have something really work well on the front end. Doesn't mean nothing works, but nothing works that well. Um, and so those big promos on the front, if that's what everyone's going for all the time, it's really hard. It's a really hard business. For a smaller publisher, finding those promos is even harder, especially to do it compliantly. And so having like a different workhorse model that allows you to go out there and maybe you have 5 of these things or something going, that are maybe not as scalable as one big, huge promo when you get it, but it gives you another model to go through. So that's the first thing that occurs to me. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that. But the second thing that occurs to me is you're basically with those challenge models, which I think are cool. You're doing a couple of things. One is you're taking a value format, like this is it's a participatory thing, right? And saying, hey, you're going to get this thing that functionally is a course that by itself has a kind of a free value that people equate to higher than a book value that they're going to come in here and get. Um, and two, that's an involvement device, which when you're talking about engagement, like even if you don't get huge front end numbers, the people you do get, I think, get very engaged, which is kind of the game.
Yeah. And also what you said, you can have 5 of these. Like, if you only have 5 of these, you're probably gonna fail because one in like 15 is gonna go and work really well. But the thing is, there are a couple of formats you can knock in the back end part of, but besides that, fulfillment, which really is very templatized,
Mhm.
actually knocking out the front end on one of these with a 4-minute VSL and a landing page. I mean, you should be ready for compliance on that copy within a week.
Hmm.
Like it shouldn't be hard, because I don't need 4 hours to convince you that the world has changed, because I didn't promise you the world has changed. I have said, hey, I know how stocks work. If you don't know how the stocks work, and you'd like to see the 5 things you should do over the next 7 days to knock
Mhm.
your portfolio in shape, I'd love to show it to you. It's $15 and there's 100% money back guarantee. I don't I don't need to spend an hour convincing you of that. I don't need 82 pages of proof, because my promise is much smaller and more scope. We've taken a little promise and a little idea to solve a pain point right now and move forward. So, if you've got a team chunking these out, it's about 3 times as much work to build the entire front end sales piece on this as it is to write an advertorial for a big idea piece. Like, it takes that copy burden and it pushes it into your fulfillment, which doesn't mean it's not there for selling on the back end,
Mhm.
but it gets you the name. And more importantly, it gives you that day one option to say, are you a free name or are you a paid name? And if you are willing to open your wallet and pull out your credit card for this opportunity, then it is worth it for me to engage with you.
Mhm.
And the speed at which you can do that, in which you can iterate that idea without waiting for a new lead and a new angle on a big idea package, which let's give copywriters credit and say, okay, I've got the work on the package done. I will have this new lead not just drafted, but through legal and ready to go in 4 weeks.
Mhm.
It's going to take me a week and a half to write it. It's going to take me a week to get edits back, and then I'm going to be spending the next 2 weeks fighting with legal over whatever tiny mundane thing they're upset about. That's a lot when you're talking about iterative testing. But if you're going, okay, it's going to take me 2 days to crank this out. I'm going to spend it into legal. We're going to spend 5 days fighting with each other about it. And 7 business days from when I said jump, we have a new offer out in the market to test.
Mhm.
That's a much more viable business solution, as opposed to give me 4 months and then we'll see if this works.
Right. So I mean, again, every time you say something, I have like 3 different angles I want to explore. So one is there's two kind of viewpoints on copy. And on the one hand, you have essentially I would say and this is not a disparaging way to say it, because I can totally appreciate it. The kind of more prima donna diva-ish copy approach of like, if it takes me a year to get it, it's going to be a year to get it because it's going to be right. And now that would be amazing if you had 100% win rate, but if your win rate isn't significantly different than other folks, then but you do sometimes get these giant ass promos that are just crushing it. But then you have, the counterpoint to that is that you have kind of like promos are shots on goal, and you just want to get as many shots on goal until you can find an idea that you can develop, and then you put the time in to develop the idea that works. And then you have those freaks out there like Evaldo who can be really good and really fast at the same time, and you're like, that's kind of like, Evaldo is the Ronaldo of
Right.
copy in that sense, and you can't build a business around that if you don't have that guy. So like figuring out where you fall on that spectrum of shots on goal and it has to be right is part of like the art of any particular publisher, right?
Yeah. And I'll say that they did a study a couple years ago where they took amateurs and they wanted them to make pots, like pottery pots. And the experiment was, what cohort of people get the most really good pots in a day? And they had 3 cohorts. They had a cohort of people that they said, just go make pots. Like they said, hey, we're trying to make as many pots as possible today. Go make pots. They had a cohort of people where they said, okay, here's how you make a good pot. Now go make pots. Just make as many as you can. And they had a cohort that said, what's really important is quality. We want to get the highest quality possible pots out the door. So we want as many quality pots as possible today. And if it's wrong, just scrap it and start over. And then they had, whatever their criteria was for a good pot. And what happened was the most good pots came from that second cohort. So the people they said it has to be perfect, just toss it. If it was like ended up with like no good pots at the end of the day, like they would have 1 or 2 in a cohort. The people that they said just throw pots ended up with 5 or 6 good pots because they were just going as fast as they can, and random luck made some of them good. And then at 300%, so if you had 5 good pots in the just throw pots, here's how you make a good pot, now do it as fast as you can. You had 5 in the good pots for just doing randomly. You had 15 in that cohort because they understood what they were doing. And then they just iterated as quickly as possible. Because ultimately, like, let's be real, I'm a copywriter. I can be a complete prima donna. I desperately wish to convince you that what I do is magic so that I can demand more money out of you. But that's me making copy for myself for my negotiation. Really, the answer is, if I have a good promise and I have a good process, it comes down to shots on goal. Some of the stuff I do is going to work. Some of the stuff I do is not going to work because I'm a professional and I'm good at what I do. More of the stuff I think will work than not, right? A 60% win rate or something because I'm good at this. But that still means a 40% lose rate. And I have gone 2 years without like a smash hit promo. And that sucks.
Everyone has.
Right. Yeah. That sucks. It's horrible for a publisher. So if you can take a little idea and just push it into the market, it doesn't just have to be a challenge. That was, my first example. There are a lot of other little idea offers that work really well. And just push it out there and you go, this is not going to be a blockbuster. This is not going to bring on 1,000 names a day. but I didn't invest in it like it's going to bring on 1,000 names a day. I invested in it like I just had a guy write 3 advertorials for my big front end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to bring in 20 to 100 names a day. And it's going to do that for the next 6 months. And then I'm going to make 8 of these so that when this one burns out, because they usually have a lifespan of like 5 or 6 months before the market moves enough that you need a new problem that you're solving, I'll have the next one ready to go. And at the same, it goes back to ROI. At the same investment you're making and trying to get one giant promo out the door that's going to bring on 1,000 names a day, you have 50 of these out the door bringing on 20 names a day. And you get the same end result in your business, but with a much more diversified risk portfolio. I mean, I hate saying that, but we're financial, right?
I've long advocated the idea that looking at promo and media spend from like an investor trader angle makes a hell of a lot of sense. So
yeah.
So then let's break down, because it seems to me then what you're saying is there are a couple of different, from a creative standpoint, there are also a couple of different kind of vectors that you can think about your ideas developing on. One can be in that format, like a challenge or some other kind of format approach. And then you're also still going into like, hey, here's a hot trend. I'm gonna get a fast promo out about like, hey, AI and X or crypto and X. Like that takes one of these formats and applies it to a trend. Is that about right? Like you have
Yeah,
kind of
and
that.
the one of the big difference between these and like what we would call a quick hit promo at Money Map, where, oh, something's happening, let me figure out how I make this work for Chris Johnson, or I make this work for Tom Gentile, or make this work for Shaw or whoever. And how do I plug that into the product they have? Well, the problem with a lot of that is when you get to that right turn, 70% of the way through the copy, where I explain to you, you have to buy a newsletter. You drop, and you can watch it on the videos, right? You drop engagement, and we think that happens because we got to a pitch, and that's not true. That, yes, you get a little drop and get to a pitch. That drop because we just came out of right field with the, do you want a newsletter? The answer is no, I don't want a newsletter. What the hell does that have to do with anything we've talked about for the last 20 minutes? It's actually, when you go with the little idea, you don't worry about selling them your newsletter. Because the way I think about it, to take a little right turn, I think makes this make sense, is I think any info business, and I've done a lot of info business, not just financial, needs 3 categories of products to make money. You need the whistle, and a whistle is loud, cheap, and shiny. And you blow it on the street corner and you get as many people just coming in to get their own whistle as possible. And that's what you sell in these little ideas promos. Just it's loud, it's cheap, it's shiny, exactly what you want. And it is a product specifically created. Doesn't have to last forever. Doesn't have to be something to be for 4 years, right? Here's our 2-week course on this. Here's our community for this. Here's whatever. But you just sell that product. Don't worry about selling them the newsletter, because that's 2 steps. It's removed. It hurts. In that product, you make a sale for your workhorse, and your workhorse is a product that 20-30% of your customers will ever buy, and it's 80% of revenue. And that's going to be your $500 to $2,000 newsletter or trading service or whatever. And the purpose of the whistle is to get people in at break even, little idea copy, so that you can spend the next 3 weeks telling them that they need to buy your workhorse. And then you have your whale, and your whale is a $10,000 plus product that 2% of your audience will ever buy, and it'll be 20% of revenue and 80% of profits, because it's just free magic money that comes in. And those are your lifetime offers, or your $20,000 in-person masterminds, or whatever you're doing there. But when you go back to the little idea, what gets it really key to make the offers work is you have to not throw in those hard right turns and those roadblocks that we just can't get out of our way and stop throwing in. When we go, this is great, everybody wants gold, how do I sell options trading off it? You don't be an asshole. That's why that's not working. They said they wanted gold, create a gold solution for them, and move on. And then once they're in your ecosystem and you've delivered on that promise, which I fully trust our ability to deliver on, because most of them don't know anything about gold or crypto or whatever, and we can educate them well and teach them how to get that first little win well. Then once you trust me, I could say, if you like this, what you really need is options, or what you really need is day trading and penny stocks. What you really need is whatever other thing, because we've already got them in. But the point is, these little idea promos sell a whistle. And the point of a whistle is to get your attention so I can move you to my workhorse. But when I'm selling the whistle, I don't tell you about the horse I have in the stable. I just talk about how shiny and fun the whistle is. And then I give it to you, and you see that I wasn't lying. And now I can sell you my next stuff, because for a bunch of organizations that are amazing direct response marketing machines and who have been like slammed on the power of one since day one, where we sell one idea and one theme, we have required that go to one product for way too long. I mean, just way too long. And then we create offers that don't make sense. Because I mean, you know, Bill said it. Nobody woke up today saying, I want to buy a newsletter. And you can take that so that I have to sell you on the big idea. That's the point of the big idea, is that nobody wants to buy a newsletter.
Right.
And I sell you on this big dream that this newsletter is going to deliver on. I can also say, hey, we have a community for real estate investors. And if you want to join, it's free. Just click here. Or if you want to join, we don't charge anything for the community, but it's a private Slack group. So it costs us $9 per month to have you in here. So it's $9 per month. We don't make any money off it, just cover our costs. If you want to join, great.
Right.
That's a really low friction sale. It proves who's interested enough to give you money. And if you have a $2,000 real estate course, that's a great group of people to sell it to.
Right. That's where, so like, conceptually, I start to think of this as, there's a few different models, like conceptual models for how we think about product ladders and product development, right? And so a very traditional stock newsletter model, and this goes back to the direct mail days, is, okay, we have a guru with a kind of a positioning or view of the market, and his front end product is essentially the lowest risk version of his recommendations, and then the risk goes up on the back end. Maybe blue chips or large caps are on the front, small caps or options or something that higher risk is on the back for more money. And so you have kind of a risk escalation in terms of like bigger profits potential, bigger risk potential on the back, and bigger price. Now in the trader education space, and this is very similar, I think, to other info industries, which is different than newsletter publishing in a lot of ways. You have essentially the escalation comes with closeness and proximity to the guru, right? So the first thing on the low price is course-like. It's, how do you do this thing? The second level is, hey, let's do this together. It's a trading service or something that I do, or some kind of a coaching product that is canned maybe. And then the higher level stuff is, oh, we have a live coaching program or in-person coaching or something. So it's proximity to the guru. And that to me seems like what you're talking about here is kind of taking these two models and weaving them together a little bit, in the sense that, like, you can have a free product that is, here's how to do this. So let's say it's, I want to capture the AI trend, and I am an options trader. Maybe it's, if there is something for AI and options, I don't know. Theoretically, here's five option strategies as AI takes off. And it's just a course. The product is like, here's 5 how-to things to trade, maybe. And then from there, you fulfill that really well. You make that content really high quality. The way you would an e-letter needs to be some of your best content, because that's what more people see, and you want to move them into and then once that product has really delivered the value, the obvious kind of next sell that the product is making is that workhorse product that you're saying that's a more expensive product. Is that about right?
Yeah, sure. And that's one way to look at it. Or, you know, if I was going to do it for AI options trading, I would say, hey, we've got our AI community or whatever. If you're interested in AI options, here's my 10 days of scheduled content, and we call it a course or a challenger or whatever. This messaging there. But then what I would give you when you came in is, every day I'd give you your lesson, and every night, right after the market's closed, I would do a rundown. Hey, let's talk about what happened today and the lessons we got from it and the biggest trades. And when I did that, I wouldn't say these are trades I've made, but here were the 7 biggest options trades on AI stocks you could have made today and how they worked. And let's break down the setups and why they worked and why that made money. And one, I think you'll give valuable information and education there.
Mm-hmm.
But two, let's be real, in a way that's not disingenuous, I'm also for the next 14 days showing you 300 or 400% winners that happened that day again and again and again and again, and I'm associating them with me. And at the end of those 2 weeks, I can say, and I guess this is closeness to the guru, but it's not. It's actually a time delineation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a retrospective, I do my market call every morning, pre-market, to say what's going on today, what we're watching for.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you our watch list of stocks, our setups we can see, and big moves we could make. And if you want that, that's $500 a year or whatever it is. And I'd love to let you know it's normally $3,000 a year, but I'll let you in for $500 because you just came through as a graduation present. And you've spent the last 2 weeks building credibility with them, but also giving real-time examples, 2 or 3 a day, proving that AI stocks make money on options trades.
Right.
And now you've gone in there. So you've not moved closeness to the guru, but you've moved from information that is interesting and that I wish to know because I wish to know, to actionable information.
Yeah.
That makes a huge change. Or you can another way to think about it as you move up, that is what most people do, I think, but very few people acknowledge, is you move down a certainty ladder and a commitment ladder. Hey, I can give you this very low commitment, extremely high certainty action. Would you like to open your crypto wallet and get the 5 cryptos you absolutely know you need to join? You know you want Ethereum, you want Bitcoin, you want whatever else. You don't have them. Would you like that done in the next 2 weeks?
Right.
We will show you step by step exactly what a wallet is, how to open it, how to do that, how to do all those things. That is, it costs $5 or it's free or whatever. It is very low commitment from them and extremely high certainty of success. They fully believe, without me having to do a lot of proving, that I can show them the 5 best places to get a wallet and the one I think they should do. I can show them how to buy those things, and they can go through step by step and do that. There's very little proof I need to give you that you will get the exact outcome I promised, which gives me an opportunity to build trust, where I can now go for higher commitment actions where I require more from you, or lower certainty actions, but with a higher reward that now require more money. Because as you said, as risk went up, you go from the big stocks to the really speculative stuff, price went up. Well, that's true, but it's as the necessary trust goes up, price goes up. So instead of thinking of it as like, God, I really have to convince the people who are interested in really small cap AI stocks that they should be on my blue chip letter because that's my opening point.
Right.
Well, no, the blue chip letter's purpose is because it's going to have a really safe track record and it's going to have a really low commitment thing. It takes less commitment for me to buy Microsoft than it takes for me to buy this, over-the-counter penny stock that's going to go up 50 gajillion percent. It's just a much smaller commitment move. Like, you could go to your financial advisor and say, should I buy Microsoft? And it'll be one of the few things that without hesitation, he just goes, yes, you should do that right now. Just go ahead and buy more Microsoft. It's a great call.
I love that frame. I love that frame of the low commitment, low risk up to, that's fantastic. I think that's a really fantastic way to apply thinking through your promo product lines. And I'm a big fan of having these mental models for how do you start to think about this, because I feel like a lot of groups, they just kind of like slap stuff together, kind of like, oh well, there's something for this, but we don't think as much about like this kind of global journey that the customer's going on in FinPub. And part of that's because ideas, the market's moving so much, we can respond to what's happening in the market a lot, but it gets very disjointed too.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and there's a lot to be said for simplifying how you think about it, because I think one place we get into, even when you talk about like, okay, how do I use little ideas in copy, is we just go on this sort of like swipe mentality where, okay, well, Agora Financial just did this and it blew up, so let's knock off what they're doing
It's like 80% of the industry culture.
Right, exactly. But very little, very rarely do we sit back and go, okay, what did they do and why did it work? And we're not philosophers, right? We don't need to spend too much time on that in general. There's a lot to be said for rip and run. Like, let's not
Mhm.
lie. That worked there. Let's change the name, rip it off, and get it out the door and take what we can take. Not going to pretend that doesn't work. But if you really want to swipe something well, and you want to swipe an idea well, it's you go back to that mental model and you say, okay, well, what are they offering and why is it working? And a
Yeah.
lot of the time it's, well, crypto is up 4,000% in the last 6 months, and they're telling you you're going to make a gajillion dollars on crypto. Or, well, the news is only weed right now, and they're telling you to buy cannabis stocks. So we're just hoovering up that demand while we stumble into it.
Right.
Right. But if you can take a model where you say something like, okay, well, we know they want crypto. We know they want cannabis. We know they want AI. We know they want whatever the tomorrow's trend is. What's the lowest commitment way for them to get exposure?
Mhm.
What is the lowest commitment way to get the exposure with the highest certainty of moderate success? Because, right, because if they're out there looking and they're clicking on our promos, they're not in that moment truly investors. I mean, they might be investors most of the time. They're gamblers. And
Right.
they just pulled the lever on a slot machine, except for they're not looking for money, they're looking for the dopamine hit. Right? The reward is the dopamine hit, is any level of success.
Mhm.
Oh, I keep hearing about crypto, man. I want to do crypto. Holy crap, my coin's up 4% this week.
Yeah.
Amazing. The second they get that dopamine hit, you can move them along the thing, because that's what they're scrolling Facebook to see your ad for. That is why they are looking at these news articles,
Yeah.
right? They responded to a rage click headline or ridiculous claim headline on MSN, and now they see your ad at the bottom, or they clicked on your thing and now they're on your advertorial. They're not they're not looking for a blue chip stock. They're not looking for anything. They've decided that whatever thing they've clicked on is going to make money or is super interesting or whatever, and whether it's greed or curiosity, they've got an itch that they want to scratch,
Mhm.
and just scratch it. Just promise that the itch will be scratched, and don't charge a lot of money for it. And if
Right.
you can then actually scratch that itch, they'll come back, because dopamine is as addictive as anything else. And you just gave them their last hit, and now you're promising a bigger one. And as the risk goes up, the dopamine reward always goes up. The more
Yeah.
risk we have, the more dopamine we get if it works,
Right.
which means we can charge more. But we just have to prove to them it's going to work first.
Right. So from a production standpoint, so there's much, like you said, you have that copy still there, but it's just it goes into the deliverables
Yeah.
rather than in the front end. So you have a very fast promotion. What is like, are you working with the production teams to kind of craft the
Oh yeah,
product
yeah.
entirely?
When I do this and it works, yeah, you've got to be in with the production team and talking about what the end state and end goal is. But it's less work than you think to get that. Then if you've got a good production team that's making a quality product, because you don't want it to become a promo in the sense that it's suddenly overly bombastic and
Right.
now proving things that are ridiculous. Instead, you just want to start with the end in mind. Look, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be selling them this back end for 8 grand. And the only reason these 2 weeks exist is to make that a no-brainer.
Hmm.
So what can I show them today that's going to make that a no-brainer? And the best way to handle this, if you really want to do it well, is you actually go to your back end, you go to your workhorse, or you look at your whale product, and you do some real customer research. And this is where the deep research comes in on the little idea. And you say, what 3 things do all of my best customers have in common? What 3 things do the people who buy this workhorse the most have in common? What are the overwhelming criteria?
Hmm.
What 3 things do the people who buy this backend do in their first 30 days after buying a front end? Okay, The only thing I want to cause to happen in this funnel, in these 2 weeks after purchase, the only purpose of this product is to get them to do those 3 things.
Right.
Because I know if they do those 3 things, they are overwhelmingly likely to buy. So I don't need to craft in a strong sales message. I don't need to craft in like really low effort sales, by which I mean let's just talk about how amazing this product is all 2 weeks so you realize you're in a sales process. That's not what I want to do.
You have some examples of what kind of things those might be?
Sure. So this is a more info product example,
Mhm.
but I have a copywriting course that leads to a partner sale and that leads to client work too for me.
Right.
Um, and the 3 most valuable things I can get someone to do that take them from a lifetime value of around $47 to a lifetime value of $5,000 for me is they respond to the first email. They complete my course, which is 14 lessons within 30 days, and they go to 1 live hangout with me. Someone who does all of those things
Mm-hmm.
is worth on average in the low thousands for me.
Nice.
But it's very hard to get someone to do all of those things. So what happens? My confirmation email, which the subject line is the best damn confirmation email ever written, is 700 words long. And its only purpose is to get you to reply with anything, any response.
Hmm.
My next 2 weeks are guided stuff where, like, if you are not going through and doing the stuff in the course, it is aggressive. Hey, you didn't log in today. What's up? Hey, can we help you out? Hey, do you have any questions? Hey, I do weekly AMAs. What's up? Because I can get someone through all that content. Because that content, sure, it's about copywriting and about
Mhm.
whatever, but it's also like 14 hours of me ranting about how I think about the universe. And simply the mere exposure effect, which is a
Mhm.
psychological principle that
Yeah.
says the more we're exposed to an idea, the more we believe it. Says if you listen to me rant about how I think about the universe for 14 hours, at the end of it, you're going to think I'm pretty smart
Mhm.
because you have 2 choices at the end of that. You can decide, oh, I was a fucking idiot and just wasted 14 hours of my life. Or you can decide, wow, he's really smart. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
And since we don't want to believe we're fucking idiots, we're going to decide the other.
Right.
And then if I get you to do that, I have lots of catches that are presented as like special promise opportunities. Hey, I'm doing a hangout just for people who do whatever thing. I'd
Yeah.
love to have you come. Just let me know. Hey, there are 2 slots left. Hey, whatever. Um, my entire funnel is only designed to get you to do one of those 3 things. Are you replying to the email and really the first email?
Mhm.
Are you actually completing and engaging in the material, which is a long rant about how smart I am? Or are you getting on a call with me? And like when my VAs and my team, which are all offshore, interact with replies, they have a couple of scripts and frameworks which make it think, but they also know that their job is not just to be nice. Their job is to get them to complete the lesson, go to an AMA, or
Mhm.
respond to an email. Because if they
Yeah.
complete the lessons, they go to the AMAs and they respond to the emails, their lifetime value 10x's
Nice.
instantly. And you can do the same thing with other industries. So I have a group that I run for a client that I'm going to get really vague about on some stuff because it's all
No
covered by
worries.
NDAs. Um, but what we want them to do is we want them to open a brokerage account. We want them to come to a single hangout where there are 3 hangouts a week. And we want them to trade anything,
Mhm.
anything.
Right.
Doesn't matter what, doesn't matter win or lose, because their lifetime value triples the second they trade something in their first 3 weeks.
That's so I think that's a really, really insightful thing for everyone. Like really like focus on this because like I can look backwards and think about things like I remember seeing like the idea of consumption of contents, right? Like
Mm.
um customers who in a hot list who don't consume the content don't buy, right? So um I remember I had a client way back in the day when I still wrote promos. we did a hot list launch, and the opt-ins for the lead magnet that started it were the highest ever, because it was this free 103-page ebook,
Right.
which is a great opt-in device and a terrible hot list product, because nobody consumes because nobody consumes the product, right? And so the hot list for that guy, it was double, I think, whatever any other hot list had done. And some of those other hot lists had done like 10 million, right? So we're like, oh, this is going to crush it. And it was, meager at best. And I was like, oh, no one consumed the content, and you couldn't get, and so that consumption piece and having them, take action, like, in measuring action, like giving them things that they do, is kind of like, direct response is supposed to be direct selling in a scalable form.
Yeah.
And we know in direct selling that you're trying to get people to say yes. And so every action they take is a little yes that they're making. And so what you're saying is you have some very specific yeses they need to make. And you don't have to do anything with that. The whole point is to get them into that yes, yes, yes mood, so that they will buy that other product. And the people who do that are the customers, and the people who don't do that are not.
Right.
And so, like, thinking about that sales process as, very action oriented on the customer prospect side and consumption of the content side. Like, if they're not paying attention, they're definitely not going to pay attention when it comes time to buy something.
Well, and the which makes for a great talk about like the whistle and making it right. I hate the PDF sign up, because the cardinal sin on a whistle is to make my marketing the price of admission for the thing you want, because then you won't engage with my marketing. So if you are signing up for my email list to get this free PDF, one, we know 80% of you will never download the PDF to begin with, so fuck that. But two, even the people who download the PDF just wanted the PDF, and they do not see the value in the email. So I've added steps. I've reduced transparency into what happens. And I made everything that happens after the here's your PDF email something they didn't want that they have to tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
If you take the same content that is in this 108-page ebook, which we will assume is great and high value and whatever, and you cut it in to 10 videos and treat it like a hot list build, or you cut it into a course that they actually gave you $2 or $3 for, and then there's some massive reward for completion so that you can incentivize completion. Now suddenly you've gone from only 20% of them ever seeing anything to 50% of them opening your second email. And by the time you're at email 5, you're down to probably 30 or 40% opening it. And by the time you get to day 7, you're really making a pitch. You've got 30% of the people on the list that have really engaged with at least half your funnel and have spent the last week thinking that you're real clever.
Right.
And that's great. It's not, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it sure makes it better. And if you combine that with the mindset that I know all of my best customers have checked their brokerage account in the last week. Like, they've looked at their stocks and they've said what and decided what is and is not performing. I know that all of my best customers do that in their first 30 days. And I'm making stuff up now, right? I know that all of my best customers in their first 30 days email me asking one of these 3 questions. Because you will, if you look at stuff and run AMAs. AMAs are amazing. 1, for engagement, to get people to reply, but 2, to figure out what content you need to hit and what you need to promote from people. Because if you run an AMA, what you'll find in almost every list I've ever done is there are 12 questions that, if you get more than 2,000 people on a list, that you get over and over again. And 9 of those questions guarantee the person is never going to buy. No one who has asked one of those questions has ever bought anything. And actually, that's amazing, because then you can just stop marketing to that person.
Right.
And 3 of the questions, everyone who's asked those questions, or 50% of the people who've asked those questions, or 30% of the people who've asked those questions, went on to be a $5,000 or $10,000 customer, or a $500 customer, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then once you know that, the only thing you go is not do I give the answer to this question, because that actually kills action.
Right. Right.
How do I provoke this question in the next week?
Interesting.
Because I know, and because I know correlation doesn't doesn't prove causation, but it is correlation. And I don't
Right.
really care about causation. If if I know that 30% of the people who ask this question go on to give me $2,000, and I go, okay, so how do I double the number of people who ask me this question? If I succeed at doubling the number of people who ask the question, do I double sales? Maybe not, but I bet I do move them 5 or 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, questions are, they show a certain direction of intent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so you go back and you push in, and it goes back to the thing. If once you've in the thing, you're consuming that whistle, that first shiny product that's just loud and cheap and gets you in the door. How does that product shape you into being prepared to take a bigger commitment at a bigger price point? And if that's the only thing you ask, and you actually get intent with your data, and you really pay attention to what moves not just revenue numbers, but also, I mean, not just sales numbers, but also lifetime value numbers, and what your best customers have in common, you reverse engineer how you treat those first 2 weeks, which are the most critical time. Because
Right.
um, if other people don't know this, the odds of sale drop by 13% a day after an activation. So after 2 weeks, you go from it being very likely that someone will make a purchase and upsell, about 60% likely that you can sell them something, to 0%.
Right.
And that's pretty well across not just our industry, but lots of industries that has been found. So those first 2 weeks are critical. And all I want to do is keep reactivating you, because an activation isn't a sale, it's a meaningful engagement with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I want those activations to be the things that turn you into a good customer. And if that's opening a brokerage account, then like, fuck it, let's spend 3 days on making you open a brokerage account. And if that's going to a webinar, then let's push the webinar. And if it's something else, let's figure out what it is and push them to do that.
I love that. I think that, you know, that idea of activation, right,
Yeah.
is wildly undeveloped, I think, in our industry, in the sense that sometimes what you're really trying to do is not just, we think about it like, oh, well, these people are kind of dropping their engagement, so let's try and send them an email to get them engaged again. And half the time the email is like, hey, you haven't opened an email in a while. It's like, yeah, probably not going to open this one either.
There's a reason for that.
But that idea there of like trying to activate the file into a meaningful engagement with the brand, in and of itself, I think is a rich vein to mine, because you can do things like I always thought that like one of the problems with how we market is often the, like, other than the email, the product delivery and the promo delivery varies, right?
Yeah.
So like this big sales video, once you're on the list for a while, I know that this video is a pitch. I know it is. And so like throwing occasional things in where like there's just content that comes and looks like a video, but there's no sale, it was just valuable content, throws off that dynamic. And if you can do things, not that I'm telling everybody go do a huge production value on the promo, it's just to illustrate a point, or on a non-promo. I'm just saying that like you can think about that, like, hey, I should try and do something to meaningfully activate my file to do something positive, where whether it's a special piece of content, a virtual event, something that you do in and of itself will make your other promotional stuff in the next 2 weeks higher probability, higher conversion.
Sure. And more than that, screw production value on a lot of these things.
Right.
Because you already got them in. Like yeah, your first promo with someone, let's go to the nines, let's make it as pretty as we can afford, whatever. But once I have your commitment, especially once you've given me money, actually being a little behind the scenes, being a little insider is fine. Like, right, like I'm in my bedroom right now. Like I'm not turning my camera so you can see my bed. Look like you're in your home office or bedroom too. Anyone who's watching this trusts one of us a lot by now. or they wouldn't still be here because we're almost an hour in. So we have a lot of trust and we have a lot of belief built up. I could turn right now and pitch my copywriting services, and somebody who's watching would buy it. But if you just throw out content that you get
Mhm.
them to consume, then the actual trick that I think a lot of us miss all the time is then we throw out content that looks like this every day, and our list loves it and engages with it and finds it high value. Uh, and then we turn around to our sales video, and suddenly, John, you're in a suit and you're in a studio, and there's a beautiful woman interviewing you. And anyone who is not just stupid is very instantly cued that we're doing
Mhm.
something else now.
Right.
And if I've got a list that's active and engaged in one format, the last thing I want to do is cue them that we're doing something else now.
Right.
I want them in
Yeah.
for the first 30 minutes looking exactly like it has always
It's
looked
looked.
until I get the sale, right? Because there are some pillars of copywriting, and one of them is presentation. How am I
Mhm.
putting together all my stuff and showing it to you? And we can tip our hand real fast that this is a sales letter, right? If I start with your normal back end opening line, which, let's be real, the back end opening line is, thank you for joining me for this blank conference. In the next few minutes, you're going to get blank amazing opportunities. Hi, I'm publisher, and let me tell you a little about that. Like, anyone who hears that spiel, who's been on our list for 3 minutes, can just go ahead and check out, because I'm about to sell you a $2,000 service. So maybe if I normally start, hey guys, it's Will, what's up today? I should start my sales video, hey guys, Will, what's up
Oh,
today?
I think more people should test promos without headlines, honestly, because like by the time somebody gets to the page, they've seen so many pieces of copy. They've opened a subject line, they've opened an email, and like now you throw a headline up on there, and it's like, okay, well, did that matter? Like, do you think it? I mean,
So
sometimes,
having tested it, headlines still help. Um, but here's the thing that people miss. But then you should put headlines on your
on
editorial.
the right, so it's the same. And this is inverting the way that we think about breakthrough format.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone thinks like the reason a book-a-log, a mag-a-log, an infomercial, the first emails, and then the webinar, and then the VSL worked is because this was how content was being consumed. And so we keep thinking we need to break through new format. Well, that means people are going to be consuming content in a format that's not yours, current format.
Right.
So like reversing that and saying, hey, this is my promo format. Maybe my content editorial format should match my promo content so that it has that same function in a much more interesting way, and it's much less easy to predict what's a promo, what's not a valuable piece of content.
Right, because you're exactly right. Like I remember when we really first got the webinar. Like I was at Stansberry when they just did some knockout winners, and Fernando absolutely crushed it. And the reason it worked was people didn't know the webinar was a sales pitch. They
Mhm.
really thought we were doing a free important event to tell them about something.
Right.
And now, 10 plus years later, they've wised up to that. Because we were doing webinars that would get 7, 8, 10,000 people on. Like the conversion rates weren't that much better. It's just no one thought we were selling them, so they showed up.
Right. Well, that's a whole, I mean, that idea of like there's two sides of a breakthrough conversion. One is the people who are on are just way higher to convert. The other one is just like you just got to help a crap ton more people on, and the conversion rate didn't necessarily go up. You just have more people to convert.
Right. I mean,
Um,
that's why TikTok is like, for every industry that's not ours, is like what Facebook ads were, 10 years ago. It's not that TikTok leads convert really well. Actually, they don't. They are garbage, and they convert way less well than almost every other vertical, with the exception of a couple of beauty products. Uh,
right.
but for the cost of 7 Facebook leads, I can buy 4,000 TikTok leads, and that math works real good. Even if they convert like dog shit,
Right.
because they cost nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to a publisher delivering on these things, what does it look like then? Because like you mentioned for yourself, you have a VA team that's has a scripts? Are they chatting with people? Are they sending emails to people like, hey, like what
So
are they doing?
yeah, so for me, it's all email response. There are lots of people that build Facebook groups, and
Mhm.
absolutely have killer VA teams that are in the DM responses, and
Okay.
that are very much, right. I mean, they're setters, right? Like they're really just very traditional cold call setters that they understand the information they're supposed to get out, and then they push people into either the webinar or to a sales call, and that
Right.
works. That works
I
extremely
do
well in a Facebook community.
I do think that like from phone sales standpoint, the community on the front might be the best way to go. But I
Yeah.
think for most people don't have that model right now, then knowing that you have an email kind of approach is, I think, key for a lot of them.
Yeah, what you have to with the emails, what's really worth taking it up a notch, um, is paying attention to that first email response, the first couple of days of questions,
Mhm.
because there will be a set of questions and responses and things that all of your customers, the people that end up buying, have. And I think traditionally, and I could be totally wrong on this because I can't prove it as well on a split test as I can prove some other things. Traditionally, a lot of us say, oh, well, great. Well, then I need to take those customer questions and change my copy so it answers them and my conversions will go up. And you know what? That does work. But anecdotally, because it's not been tested like straight split tests, only I've seen revenue raise after I do that. If you replace that with saying, actually, what I want to do is provoke those questions that the best customers have and
Mhm.
then answer them individually.
Yeah.
And so here are my scripts. And that's why I use VAs. But Chat GPT is not good enough for this yet. I have tried and it's just not there. Maybe in
Right.
3 months, but as of
Not
today,
today.
it's not there yet. But a reasonable human in the Philippines at 650 per hour absolutely can do this because all they are doing is modifying a script to use the language they do and to answer their real question. And we go, look, if you get these questions in yet, like you can delete all they want, but if it's one of these five, here are your response scripts.
Mhm.
Here's the offer you make them. Or here's, there's a coaching call offer, or there's we'd actually love to drop you into our free community. Or you're absolutely right. John's created a whole training on this. I'd love to give you access if you're interested
Mhm.
or whatever it is, to provoke those responses, because by getting those responses, one, you get a chance to do an individualized one-on-one action at a very low cost, because once you get in the script, one VA can really churn through about 80 of those responses an hour. It's less than a minute a piece. It's
Right.
not quite to a minute, but it's less than a minute a piece. One VA can just churn through, and now you get people that are getting individualized response where the speed of
Mhm.
response is all that matters. You want to get back to them in less than an hour, and you're gathering data. Now, instead of going, oh, I dropped conversions, you go, here's, without building a hot list or doing a sweep, here's the 30% of my list that's plus value. And I know that. And I know that
Nice.
before the sale.
That's killer. That's killer. I love that. All right. Is there anything that I'm too dumb to ask that you should be asking?
um, the only thing that you're too dumb to be asking, I guess, which you're not too dumb, is you got to be really careful when you dig into this about turning anecdata into data. So you're going to go and you're going to do an AMA, or you're going to look at the things that you think most of your customers have in common, and you're going to start that with the stuff you think is true. And you've got to put a test layer in the middle where, okay, we think this is true.
Mhm.
Let's test it and see what happens when we do it. And move into to really see. And we're not curing cancer here, right? It's fine for some of it to be good enough testing. It's really fine to be even completely anecdotal, or let's just change it and see if results go up. But if they don't, it's important to ask the question, because I'll tell you that the framework does work,
Mhm.
but it doesn't work if you say, here are the three things that all of my good customers do, and then you are wrong. And now you're
That would be a
provoking
problem.
actions that
So how do
don't
you test? So
work.
how are you testing that?
So I'll take a set of 6 actions that from data, and I got a guy in Pakistan that I make look through just oodles of spreadsheets of and things and responses from stuff that we download. That here are the 6 actions that appear to be highly correlated with a good customer, and my goal is 6. And then I will split them up and I'll go, okay, well, do I have the traffic volume to run 3 tests? Because I want to put 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. I want to see which one of these does the best.
Okay.
And then 2 actions is a reasonable thing. Like in the next 2 weeks, I just want you to do these 2 things. And everything in the funnel exists to make you do these 2 things.
Right.
And then I end up with 3 funnels, each of which has 2 things it tries to do. And then you can just cut and paste those together as things seem correlated. It's like, wow, these 2 worked really well together. Okay, let's go there. And you give that 3 months, 4 months if you're pulling in 100 people a day across a couple of whistles. And you end up with a really data-driven response that if I can just get a new customer to do action 1 and action 4, that's
Now,
all that's a customer.
it seems to me that where people are going to get hung up initially now are going to be figuring out what those actions might be for a newsletter or a trader educator, right? Like, I mean, you talked about things like opening a brokerage account, reviewing your trades. Those seem like maybe good starting points, or reviewing your current portfolio. But what are, like, how would you advise people to think about this from their own business?
So the first act, if you're a newsletter business, and this shouldn't need to be said, but it does. The first fucking thing I need you to do is open the email.
Right.
And then I need you to reply to it. And not besides talking about let's make you a
So
good
not click, but actually reply. Just be
actually
clear.
reply. Yeah, actually reply to it, not a click. Because actually, if I cannot put a link in my confirmation email, that would be awesome because it's going to inbox better. But besides any advanced psychology stuff, let's just talk about email deliverability for a second. If I can get 30% of my list replying to the first email I send them, I will be in the inbox.
For sure. For sure.
And then until I do something really stupid and marketery, like putting in a 52 font headline or putting in 5 sales links and reminding Google that I am in fact spam, I'll stay in the inbox. And if I'm in if I am in your primary tab in your Gmail, I make more money. And if you reply to my first 3 emails, I make more money. Everyone, on that note, by the way, everyone should have a reply automation. That if someone replies to their email, they get a deeper engagement, preferably that they would reply to again. And it is worth it if you have the bandwidth to have every automated email in your funnel have a reply that happens where you just get a bonus to reply. Like there's a free bonus thing. There's some engagement that they want that happens just to train people to reply. You don't even always have to mention it, but just to train your people who are going to reply more. Because we know both on an email deliverability standpoint, that's amazing. That's huge. That helps us a lot. But also just on a like common sense thing, if they're engaging with our brand and they think they're engaging with our guru or our guru's team, and our guru comes back after they've been talking to this person for 2 weeks, so this person really thinks they've been in a conversation and says, hey, you should buy whatever, then they'll probably buy. I have never found it to be the case that one of the actions that massively moves people towards being a customer is not replies to an email in their first week.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Always on
that is like massive engagement, and like that means someone's paying attention. And you know, it's a hurdle. It's a social hurdle. Like, I don't want to talk to this guy if he's just going to pitch me all the time. So if they do reply, like that's a big yes signal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the first one is how do I change my first email or my first couple of emails to push for engagement? AMAs are really good at that. They're a giant pain in the ass, and I think everyone stops doing them pretty quickly because they suck to fulfill. Because you'll end up spending a day a week doing this. Ask me how I know. But for a long time, when I was just trying to get engagement up on my list, I just did a question of the day every day.
Yeah.
And my CDA, if I didn't have another CDA at the bottom of my newsletter, it would be, here's the question of the day, and it would be the most interesting question I thought most people would engage with. As always, I answer all the questions on Tuesday, record them in a video. If you want access to all the questions. All you have to do is respond to this email with a question of your own. And so then that got me so that
That's a great one. That's
yeah,
really great.
half of the people who opened my emails would respond to every email. The
I love that.
problem was promising to do that come Tuesday, I would spend 7 hours recording looms of answers, which I don't care. Like I was just done after about a month. I was like, that's enough of this. Thank you.
But as an occasional thing, I mean, obviously on a larger list, that going quite that making that big of a promise would be exhausting. But
Right. Yeah.
I
It
like the
worked really
idea
well
of
when my list
saying,
was at 50 and not so well when my list was at 5,000.
but I like the idea of having people reply with answers, and you have, you're going to say like, there's going to be like you get 1,000 people respond. There's going to be a big chunk of the same questions.
Yeah.
And you just answer those questions and do one big video that references the whole kind of.
Well, and you can even, honestly, like you can even, I didn't because I figured out other engagement mechanisms that worked for my list and were very specific to me. But you could just as easily get a VA. Like this is not needs
Right.
a US worker task to go through questions and just spend 2 weeks indoctrinating them on what's a good question and not, and have them pull out the best 20. And only
Mhm.
promise you're going to answer the best 20 and have those queued up for you on Monday so that now it's still going to be time because they're going to be 5-minute answers. So it's going to be 2 hours of your day. But now
Right.
instead of it being 7 hours of slog through garbage, you've got 20 really cool questions that you're answering and you're pulling out a massive
That's great.
content every week. And then you could just drop in the middle of that, like on one question. The answer can be, of course, you need to buy my product. And here's
Right.
the sales link that you could just throw in, and don't do that every time,
Yeah.
but pop it in and get that. Because I also think it's important, and most people undervalue this, that if you're gonna sell to people, don't do the bullshit that our industry is better at than BizOp, but BizOp does all the time. I'm just here to help you, and I don't want your money. Right? Alex Hormozy, used to have his byline be, "I'm not here to sell you anything," except
Bullshit.
for if he is, and we all know that. And
I
then people get angry when you sell them. No, I'm
I
here to sell you something.
I just had this conversation with another copywriter about how one of the pieces of like cut and paste copy that I hate more than anything else, or almost more than anything else that I see, is I want to give back. That's why I'm doing this newsletter. You. That's not like that's the lamest, most boring, non-believable thing. And what I love is whenever I see a piece of copy where there is some other reason that makes a lot of sense why the guy has decided to do this thing, even if it's like, look, I manage X billion dollars, and that is stressful as hell. Trust me, I didn't get to see my kids, I didn't get that, all that kind of stuff. And this is a way for me to stay in the markets and do well, and still have time with my family. Any other reason besides I just want to give back is so much more powerful. I cannot
I'm
stand
here to
that.
help you as long as you pay me. Well, because the problem with that answer is it begs the question, then why do I have to pay you?
Right.
And it's and
Exactly.
like why it doesn't just pull that objection to the fore, it creates that objection, which is stupid. Why are we
Right.
creating the objection? Um, but I also like, if you get a free sign up and your thank you page doesn't have a $20 upsell on it, you are being stupid. Because one, a meaningful non-0% of people, regardless what the copy is, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of people will take it. And
Right.
taking $20, if it's a free sign up, taking $20 from 1% of people offsets the cost of the acquisition by 20 cents. Great.
Right.
But two, it tells everybody, as long as your sale is not horrible and like just makes them hate you, it lets everybody know from day one that you are in a buying relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. It really is important. It does matter over the long term, that not that you are misrepresenting yourself and you're going to sneak sales in, that you are openly and honestly running a business and you will attempt to sell them your product because you think it's a great product. And in the meantime, you're more than happy to give them free content.
Yeah.
And that relationship with your readers over the long term makes a huge difference. Because if you go outside of our industry, because we sell aggressively enough that this doesn't happen, But like if you go into BizOp, into a lot of the industries that lean heavily into that, like I'm just here to help you, I've made all this money and now I want to give back bullshit, the responses they get to launch emails. Like for every person who buys, there is seriously a person telling you to go kill yourself. Like it
Right.
is, they're horrible because the people feel betrayed because
Yeah.
they've spent the last 3 weeks engaging with this person who keeps telling them that they're just here to help them. And
Mhm.
now they want 10 grand.
Right.
That doesn't work. You can just get around that by just honestly saying, here's my product and I will sell it to you later. And the best way I have to market this product
Right.
is to give you as much value as possible now.
Right. And you can say like, look, I give that the free content to help people, and
Right.
that's
I do this
fine.
to
Like,
help. I
but
do this.
like my goal is like I need you to come in. Like I say that like, look, I legitimately want to help people in the industry, but like at the end of the day, I also want you to come to the damn conference. Like, and I have people who will come to me and like it's one of those like this is a non-buyer question, right? Or thing that I always get, which is, hey, I'm ex fintech. I have a business plan or strategy that basically requires everybody in publishing to sell my product for me. I would love to give you a percentage of sales. I'm not going to come to the conference. Okay, that's awesome. Go fuck yourself. I have no interest in you. Like, um, I have other people who, it's like another one is like, I will only come if I can sponsor and be on stage. And it's like, well, you don't want to be part of the community. Go fuck yourself. Like, I know that guy. He's never going to be like a consistent customer, right? Like, and so like you can kind of have that like idea of like, hey, yeah, these things are here to help, but like the idea like, yeah, you got to come to the conference, you got to buy the product, you got to do the thing. Otherwise, why are we even here together?
Yeah. Well, and there's something to be said. I say everybody needs three products. They need the whistle, the workhorse, and the whale. There is something to be said for always being selling your whale.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course I have a product. I have this product. It's extremely expensive, and it is for the people who can afford it. And if that's not you, I run this proud. I do this to cover my costs, and I give free help for everyone else because I want to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And suddenly, like just taking that frame, of course I am selling a product. I am selling a $30,000 a year research service for people for whom making an extra 20% on their portfolio is worth $30,000 a year. If that's not you, these are the other things I do. I have this $2,000 thing that keeps the light on. And if that doesn't make sense, I give away this content for free because I like helping people.
Yeah.
But just a level of honesty, and what did Ogilvy say? The customer's not a moron, they're your wife. No one thinks anymore the days where people believed that we were really running these newsletters because we wanted to help people and doing this free stuff because the industry's changing and we care about America or whatever are gone. They all know we're here to
Right.
sell. So let's just go ahead and not be assholes about it, right? Not put it
Right.
in every email, but there's something to be said about your confirmation email, acknowledging that, setting the terms for the relationship. So when you come back in 2 weeks and you're pitching them, you're doing what you said you were going to do. Because also, what we do at the end of the day, all copywriting is the scripted transfer of belief in a promise. At
Mm-hmm.
the start of the copy, I make a promise and I believe it. At the end of the copy, you believe it. And if I've done that, I get the sale. And if I haven't, I don't.
Right.
So as much as possible, before I get to the sell, I actually want to fulfill as many promises to you as possible because that's how we build trust. I said I was going to do a thing and I do it. And and that works if I tell you I have a product, I'm going to pitch it to you. And then I pitch it to you. I'm actually building trust because
Mm-hmm.
I
I
said that
told
I
you.
would, and then I did.
Right.
As opposed to I said I'm just here to help you,
No, I'm
and then I
pitching.
didn't.
Right. But okay, so like I love this all around. I think that like what you're doing is, on the one hand, you're starting with this conversation about little ideas, but really, like to me, this is a little bit more sophisticated direct response marketing because you're diving into engagement devices, which are always, booster and conversions. You're diving into like the relationship with the customer and actually thinking about the marketing materials as furthering the actual relationship. And we talk about relationship a lot, but what you're doing is saying, wait, if we're going to do a relationship, that's a two-way interaction.
Yeah.
Let's increase that two-way interaction, and that customer is a better customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything about the little idea, by the way, works without this. I mean,
Hmm.
to a real extent, it's not a bad idea. Just in a void, do nothing else. To go, is this a problem that you would give me $10 to solve? Okay, I'll take your $10, and allow that to be a one-off interaction without a newsletter, without a continuity stream, without anything other than I gave you money and now you're a customer and now you're on my list and we're fine. And go, can I do that at around break even? Right? Can I do that at a 30-day break even? Because if so, not running that funnel is stupid.
Right.
That works, and the little idea does that really well to reconceptualize what you're doing, not as something that has to be another newsletter because you're a fintech or a FinPub.
Yeah.
That you can just actually legitimately solve a problem on a one-off thing, and then just scope that to what you're delivering, right? Because I get it. We need our publisher's exemption if we're going to make a stock pick. It's got to be a
For sure.
newsletter if it's a stock pick. But boy, howdy, do people have lots of questions about money that don't involve a stock pick to solve, that doesn't need a stock pick to solve. And if it does need a regular newsletter to solve, then just sweep them into your free for that piece of it.
But even, man, and if I remember right, I think Brad Hopman did this for a while on one of his lists. When it might have been a Weiss, where he had an editorial thing where he would just encourage questions, and a lot of his editorial was like he would pick and choose those questions and be like, David R asked this, and here's my response, and then he'd have 5 or 6 of those. And I thought that was great. I thought it was a really great thing, because like you get a lot of feedback from people about like whatever trend is going on in the news. If you see the same thing from a lot of people, this is something you need to speak to. It also gives you editorial just ideas.
Things to write about, yeah.
In a publishing business, like, it helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
That gets old real fast.
Right. But to your point, to having email people replying to emails, increasing your deliverability, to increasing customer engagement, like really thinking about the customer as a person that you're trying to engage with rather than just sell to or broadcast to. It's not broadcasting, it's engaging. And that's what, all of the internet and tech developments that happen seem to be able to increase our ability to engage the customer. And if we leave that on the table, it's kind of a wasted resource.
Well, it isn't exactly, and it's, if you look at like why is it on a value per engagement? Because just followers are not a great count, but if you talk about engaged followers who like and respond to your stuff on X or on TikTok or on Facebook or any of them, why are their values generally so much higher than someone just subscribing to newsletter? And I'm making a distinction here that I think is going to confuse a lot of people. I understand your follower count on Twitter is way less valuable than your subscriber count. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the people that ever once reached out to you with a question on Twitter. If you subset that, which is going to be 10-20% of the people you've actually engaged with, those people will give you money. That is why, if you look outside of our industry, there are entire solutions of tech and VA teams whose job is to do nothing but be in your DMs, because those people will give you money. And the answer is because email is not a broadcast tool. We forget that, right? Email is not a broadcast tool. It is a communication tool. It is the precursor to every instant messenger we have, and they have the ability to click reply.
Yeah.
And that is what it is actually meant to do. I mean, we use it for other things, but it's actually meant for someone to click reply.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe just ask them to click reply.
As opposed to tell them not to reply to this email.
Right. Don't send your emails to do not reply at whatever.com.
Oh, that's awesome, Will. I appreciate this. This is awesome. How do people get in touch with you?
So if you want to get in touch with me, you can check out CopyRoad, copyroad.com. That is mostly a copywriter course. It requires an invite code to get in. 934 will open it for you. Or you can just email me, will@copyroad.com. Also, if you're a publisher, don't sign up for my copywriting course. I mean, you can if you want to, but like really, Why?
I'll post your LinkedIn. I'll post your LinkedIn profile, and you're in the Discord, FMS Pro Discord. Everyone who wants to connect with you there, you can hit them up in DMs there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm always happy to make an introduction too. So, Will, thanks for doing this. I'll probably get you to come into the FMS Pro and stir something up.
Awesome. All right. Talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.